turn on the northern side of York in the Clifton area, on the run back downstream, we'll pass right through the city centre, we'll eventually turn near Fulford and bring you back to the landings. And at the end of the trip, you can disembark at either landing, regardless of where you boarded, it's up to you. There will be a brief call at King's Stave first. And once any passengers who want to have left us at that landing, we will continue to Lenville Bridge, the landing that we just left. And that's where the trip terminates. So either landing at the end, whichever's more convenient for you. Refreshments are available, the bar's open down below. We've got various beers, wines and spirits on sale, but if you think the sun isn't quite over the yardarm yet, we can offer you tea, coffee and soft drinks. Licensing covers the whole vessel. You can bring any drinks you like onto the top deck with you, but it's up to you. I would like to emphasise though that the entire vessel is no smoking. I start the commentary with the bridge we're approaching. This carries the railway from York to Scarborough, and has always been known as Scarborough Bridge. Scarborough was the first seaside resort anywhere to be connected to the railway system when the route opened in 1846. The bridge had iron girders at first, and in the 1850s additional timber supports were put in beneath. The bottom ends of them rested in iron soffits that are still bolted to the stonework. It was rebuilt with steel spans in 1875. These carry a footpath on the downstream side as well as the railway. Was an important railway centre from the mid-19th century onwards. It's well known now as the home of the National Railway Museum. If you're looking ahead and to the left, you can see that. It's the large building visible against the skyline. The National Railway Museum was opened on September the 27th, 1975, and the reason they chose that date was because it marked the exact 150th anniversary of the opening of the Stockton and Darlington Railway, often thought of as the beginning of the railway age. Between us and the National Railway Museum runs the East Coast Main Line. York is slightly south of the halfway point between the capitals, 205 miles south of Edinburgh Waverley, 188 miles north of London King's Cross. That crosses the river about a mile further upstream from here. We're turning round long before we get to that. Next bend, you can see there are some concrete and steel sluice gates that are set into an earth embankment. The earth embankment there encloses about 4 square miles of meadows, and there's a similar set of gates at the other end of the scheme that let floodwater into that area when the Ouse bursts its banks. A large volume of floodwater is trapped and held back there where it's not doing any damage. When the river's going down again, those gates of the cliff are now full, return the water to the main stream at a controlled rate. It's not always quite as simple as that. Some of the worst floods here have overwhelmed that scheme, but it's proved useful on other occasions. I will be mentioning flooding problems at some of the other appropriate locations as well. The Ure, Swale and Mid all drain a very damp part of the country, the fells and dales to the northwest of us. So the River Ouse on the plain of York is rather prone to flooding. The 2000 floods got to 17.6 above normal, but these buildings to our left were kept dry on that occasion. The defences were up to the job. Directly ahead of us, on the skyline behind Lendal Bridge, the prominent church tower is on St Martin le Grand, the parish church in Coney Street. Coming out from behind the trees to the right of it, you can just see the top of All Saints pavement as well, with its crown of pinnacles. 19 medieval parish churches have survived inside the city walls. You may think it's a lot, but actually the maximum number in pre-Reformation times peaked at 42. Over half of them have been lost over the years for various reasons. On the right, we're about to pass the York City Rowing Club's premises, and as well as this rowing club, York University, Leeds University, St John's College and St Peter's School also have boat sheds on the river. Several times each season, regattas are held here and away crews come from all over the country to compete in them. Lendal Bridge was completed 1863. One of its effects was to put the ferryman out of business. The last Lendal ferryman, John Lehman, lived in the small round stone tower on the right, originally built as part of the city walls. He was compensated for the loss of his livelihood with £15 cash and a present of a horse and cart, which in those days really wasn't a bad redundancy settlement. The Guildhall and Council Chambers are just ahead on the left, a group of stone buildings there. The bit at the nearest end with the tower on the corner was finished in 1960. The middle bit is 1870s Victorian Gothic revival. Towards the south end of the site is some stonework from the 1440s. The oldest part of this group of buildings was hit in an air raid in 1942. A lot of it is post-war restoration work. On the right, there's a church spire which is on All Saints North Street, famous for its stained glass. It includes a window by John Thornton of Coventry, who did the Great East Window of the Minster. He first came to York in 1405 and was the leading stained glass craftsman of his day. The buildings to our left, with a balcony in front of them, used to be a newspaper works, now turned into a cinema surrounded by bars and cafes. Road access is from Coney Street, which is a pedestrian precinct in a busy shopping street. Heavy lorries and plant wouldn't have been all that welcome. Construction work was done from this side using barges on the River Ouse. On the right, the Park Inn towers above us. This used to be called the Viking Hotel because Norse relics had been discovered at the site when the foundations were dug. When it opened in 1969, it won a prize for its architectural merits, believe it or not. I'm sure it must be better in prospect than aspect. The three-arch stone bridge in front of us is Ouse Bridge. In its present form, it dates from 1810 to 1820. It was part of a road widening scheme that included the approach roads from either side. The upstream side of the present bridge was built hard against an older and much narrower bridge at this location, and opened for traffic before the old bridge was taken down to make way for a downstream extension to this bridge. Doing it in stages like this, they kept the road open all the time the construction was going on. As we pass beneath, you can clearly see a joining line in the middle where the two sections meet. On the right, just ahead of us, is the Queen's Hotel, completed October 2000, just before the record-breaking floods. Even though it's on a stone basement garage, that didn't save the Queen's Hotel. It was awash at the height of the flooding and had to be evacuated. It featured on the TV coverage with some of the last guests leaving by boat across the street on the other side to get to dry land. Next door, the Woods Mill Quay development, two 19th century warehouses that are now riverside apartments. Queen's Stave, on which these buildings stand, is still officially a commercial wharf. There was barge traffic at Queen's Stave on a diminishing scale in the early 1990s. Just ahead and left, the heavily buttressed limestone wall parallel to the river is a remnant of the Franciscan friary. Like St Mary's Abbey, it was closed in the dissolution of the monasteries. Buildings behind that wall now, the back of the Victorian police station, with the fire station at the south end. They face onto Clifford Street. And further along, the first part of the row of houses there is called Friars Terrace, to commemorate the previous occupants of this site. Hopefully something more positive will come of it eventually. It is a listed building, it's entitled to some legal protection. We're now approaching Skeldergate Bridge, which dates from 1881. The small left-hand arch could open. If you look carefully at the small left-hand arch, you'll see a crack in the middle of it there. The road deck went up in one piece like a drawbridge, and the two halves of the supporting arch swung outward like a pair of gates. The stone tower to the left, which has become a cafe, contained the machinery. The last time it did open was during 1971 for two Royal Navy inshore minesweepers visiting York in our 1900th anniversary celebrations. Roman York was founded AD 71. St George's Field to our left is a car park now, but it gets its name because the Order of the Knights Templar built a chapel to St George on it. The chapel was pulled down in 1312. That's when the Templars were banished from this country and had their lands confiscated. St George's Field became common land. The right to have a fair on it at Eastertide is still upheld to the present day. There's a bylaw on the city statute books that commands the men of York to practice archery there at least once a week. It's not often obeyed, and that's probably just as well. On the right, we're about to pass two permanently moored houseboats that have been converted from commercial barges. These give you an idea of the size and shape of the vessels that would have traded here at one time. And you can see on the right as well, there's a building called Waterfront House. And that used to be the warehouse of the Cooperative Society, who handled cargoes of flour, butter and coal at these moorings. Waterfront House was only turned into flats in the late 1990s. It had been empty quite some time by then. This part of the riverside below Skeldergate Bridge hasn't been used commercially since the early 1960s. I'll tell you more about the foss on the way back upstream. I'll just say for now that it's important to the town planning of the early settlement. The land between the rivers could easily be defended with flowing water on two sides. This area in Neighbour, making this part of the river permanently non-tidal. The tidal part of the river continues on across the Vale of York to be joined by the Wharf at Keywood. After passing through Selby, it's joined by the Derwent at Barnby-on-the-Marsh and the Ayr at Airmin. At the inland port of Goole is a junction with the Ayr and Calder navigation. And it's also joined there by the Dutch River, a 17th century drainage cut that diverted the flow of the Don to a more direct route to the estuary. 34 miles downstream from York, the Ouse merges with the Trent. The combined flow of the Ouse and the Trent is the Humber. The Humber continues on past the ports of Kingston upon Hull, Immingham and Grimsby. These waters reach the North Sea at Spurn Point. York to Spurn Point by river is 85 miles. We're not going to cover very much more of that mileage, but we are just about to go under the newest bridge over the Ouse in York. This is the Millennium Bridge, and it's a lightweight one for cycles and pedestrians only, a popular and useful shortcut between Fulford and the Bishopthorpe Road areas. Crossing between these parts of York in the past meant you had to go up to Skeldergate Bridge and double back on yourself. Shorter the Millennium Bridge encourages people to walk or cycle. It does help to reduce the traffic congestion a bit, eliminating some of the shorter car journeys that might have otherwise occurred. You might notice the height gauge on the right, just in front of it, is counted down from the top in metres to show the headroom available beneath the bridge at any particular water level. You might think that's useful information for us on a river that's prone to flooding, but actually it's nothing to worry about in this direction. This bridge is higher than any of the city centre bridges, so if it was too high for us to get under it, we would have been put to grief quite some time ago. The gauge is repeated on the downstream side, even though the letter Willow grow up right in front of it there. It is of more significance there. If you were heading upriver towards York, it might be the lowest bridge that you'd so far encountered. Say might be, because of course on the tidal part of the river further downstream, the state of the tide at the time you pass any fixed structures will have a bearing on these matters. So there are constant daily variations quite apart from the flooding. the site of Redfern National Pass. The glass factory was closed and demolished in the mid-1980s, but up to the very end of its existence, used to receive deliveries of furnace oil by tanker barge from Birmingham. Two halves rising through an arc, the winding gears turned by hand using the windlass handle. The difficult bit's winding it back down again. It's much harder against the counterbalance weights than it is to get it open in the first place. It was used a couple of years ago to get a houseboat into there, so there is still occasional call for it. The last regular traffic that used to go through there was paper. The works of the Yorkshire Evening Press is about half a mile up there, and bulk newsprint used to be sent by barge from Goole. About one barge load a week was involved in this traffic, which was lost to road transport in 1997. It was the last regular cargo carrying of any kind to York. 1998 was probably the first year since the start of the Roman age that no cargo had been landed in this city. Since then, there have been a handful of special deliveries of various kinds by barge, mainly in connection with construction projects. Just behind it, and on the near side of the castle site, there used to be an artificial moat to keep it segregated from the rest of the city. We'll be back inside the city walls in just a few moments once we've got back through Skeltergate Bridge. If you look to the left-hand side where we clear this bridge before it disappears in the River Ouse there, you can just see the end of the city walls on Thinkley Wooded Hill. It's called Bailey Hill because it was the site of one of the Normans fought at Bailey time forts that had once stood there. It's an artificial earthwork, and it's one of the places you get onto the city walls if you want to do the walk around them. Just ahead on the right, just by the red boat sign there's a limestone wall going back at a right angle from the river. It used to block the gap between the river and the castle's moat, which was more or less on the alignment of the road you can see through the trees there. And you'll see Clifford's Tower, the keep again, above the rooftops as we clear these trees. To the first of the two stops. This is King's Stave. If you wish to leave us at this first opportunity, thank you for sailing with us. I hope you had a pleasant time and enjoy the rest of your day out. But please keep well away from the exit until we are securely tied. Either myself or one of the crew members will remove the safety chains to let you get ashore once we're satisfied that the vessel's properly moored. If you'd rather continue to Lendal Bridge, just sit tight for a minute or two. We'll get going again as soon as possible. Thank you very much. There's a slight bit of traffic jam here. We're waiting for River Duchess to turn out of the Kingstade landings. They're the first Bishopthorpe Palace trip of the day. So they have to turn through 180 degrees there to go downstream to see Bishopthorpe Palace, while the River Palace directly in front of us is simply the empty boat trying to get back onto number 1 mooring there to form the next city cruise. All this area along the right-hand bank for some distance is called Kingstade. You might remember on the downstream part of the trip I briefly mentioned Queenstade, now to our left-hand side. So was the best for a mooring place or landing. Still used quite a lot in a part of the country that was once under Viking rule. It was their equivalent of the Saxon Wharf, or the Norman-French Quay, terms that are perhaps more familiar in other parts of the country. When the river's in flood, inevitably the first building to be affected is a pub called the King's Arms, and it's just a few yards ahead on the right-hand side there. The water laps over their doorstep at only about 12 feet above normal. Not all that unusual. Never a winter goes by without at least one flood getting into the bar of the King's Arms. You'd be glad to hear that their beer's kept in an upstairs room rather than a cellar. Also found what we believe to be the brick abutments of the Romans Bridge, and their position, set back from the modern riverside, indicated that the river was wider in Roman times, or that it's altered course a bit over the centuries. It would have been very different when it was still tidal up to and beyond this point, and before the banks were built up with stonework and pilings all the way through town. The river's been artificially fixed on its present course for the last few centuries. If you've noticed similarities between Lenville Bridge and Steltergate Bridge, then you won't be surprised to hear that they were both designed by the same person, Thomas Page. He He's best known for Westminster Bridge on the Thames, which predated Glenville Bridge by 2 or 3 years. The second landing and the final end of the trip, so once again thank you for staying with us. Hope you had a pleasant time and enjoy the rest of your day out. Just remind you to stay clear of the exit until we are securely tied. Once again, either myself or a crew member will remove the safety chains to let you ashore once we're satisfied that the vessel's properly moored. Thank you.
That is to America being curious of 70s.